Getting it real with RealChunWai on the hottest topics, frank, engaging and candid. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. The cabinet list has come under scrutiny, even criticism, as Prime Minister Dr. Sri Anwar Ibrahim struggled to put up his unity government lineup. How will the Prime Minister handle his hot seat? Joining us tonight is lawyer Jahaberdeen Mohd Yunoos to give his views. Welcome, Jahabar. Good evening, Malaysia and followers from around the world. Welcome to the RealChunWai show again. Our guest for tonight is Dr. Jahaberdeen Mohd Yunoos. He's a senior lawyer and founder of Rapera, a movement that encourages critical thinking. More importantly, he was my hostel mate at the University Kebangsaan Malaysia, where we were studying in 1980. Welcome, sir, to the show.
Thank you, Chunwai. Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be on your show. And the moment you mentioned UKM, bring back memories.
Yes. We will now dive onto the show, okay, because we are running out of time. And the question is, there has been a lot of debate, a lot of criticism, a lot of scrutiny over our cabinet list. And I want to ask you this question. What is your overall view or your impression of the cabinet lineup? How do you make out of this list?
Okay. Firstly, Chunwai, if you look at Malaysian politics, prior to 2018, there's never been much of a criticism of any cabinet.
Yes.
In fact, you realize that 2018, good development, citizens have become critical of who is in the cabinet. Yes. That's a good sign. Yes. Now, having said that, if you look at the current political scenario, I think everybody has been discussing about it, and they have correctly highlighted that this cabinet is unique because this cabinet is made up of a coalition of members. Unlike the previous coalitions before 2018, they were strong, but it's a national coalition. But this time around, the coalition is formed after the results. And therefore, plus minus, we expect there will be give and take, there will be compromises made, and so on and so forth. So some of the members in the cabinet surely will have to come from various of these parties to the coalition. So I look at it as a cabinet of a political compromise. No one can be 100% satisfied.
Right.
So for that moment, I have an open mind. I say, let us be open-minded and see what's happening.
Yes.
For the simple reason, Chunwai, is because while in a sense, who makes up the cabinet is important, I'm very, very conscious of the fact that the cabinet makes up the political government. Sure. The administrative government, the civil servants still go on.
Yes.
So more importantly would be what is the direction the Prime Minister is going to give. And that would be the most important thing.
Correct. Jabba, we have, as you said, that this is unprecedented in the country's history. And obviously that a lot of Malaysians are feeling insecure, unsure, perhaps unprepared for this kind of lineup on this government. Because prior to the election, many of these cabinet members, they had bad mouth each other, and they had made proclamations that we will not work with you. We will not have you in my cabinet. So they made these proclamations, which of course has been captured on social media as making these rounds to show that look, these politicians have not kept their word. They have put these members which should not be in the cabinet, which they have criticized in the campaign, but they are now stuck with each other. This is a unity government, not a government or of a particular party or coalition. So they are made up of former enemies, former sworn enemies, but they are stuck together. So in a way that the Prime Minister is not really dominant, does not have the kind of power which the previous Prime Minister enjoyed, which means that he has got to take into account the views, the consensus of the members of the other parties. Do you think that this has made Anwar Ibrahim a weak Prime Minister, or we are going through a kind of a maturing democracy where, look, Prime Minister should not have so much power. You have got to take into account the views of your partners in government. And if things really go wrong and you do not listen, they can pull out and the whole government collapse. That's why that you have a lot of this debate as to how long will the unity government last, and how should the Prime Minister, who do not have an actual strong position, handle this kind of put together government.
Okay, Chinwai, you have actually raised three very important points, which are highlighted in this current political scenario. The first one you mentioned is about the perception of the voters. As you correctly pointed out, the voters may say, "Hey, what's happening here? I thought they were against each other, and now why are they working together?" Now, that is an understandable perception, and that for some of the lay voters, because voters can tell exactly how politics works. They are more genuine, more sincere. But it's a good thing in the sense that brings to your third point, which is maturing. You're talking about maturing democracy. So while the voters are, some of them are not happy, some of them disappointed, some of them confused as to why two blocks of politicians who are against each other's throats now able to embrace each other, that frustration, that confusion will lead to maturing of democracy in the country. So at the end of the day, my hope is that with current experience by the voters will now realize that while the politicians are able to make compromises in politics, voters also must learn how to make compromises in politics. In other words, what I'm suggesting is it is about time the voters move away from blind party loyalty, which we've been used to from Merdeka up to 2018. So now voters should go more towards probably voting for leaders, looking at issues which is more in line with the national interest. So that's very good. So the voters will now realize politicians are not the only one who can do compromises, we too can. And the second point on that thing that I want to emphasize is, Chunwai, I also hope that the voters will know that there's no need for the voters to fight each other, because each of them have different political leanings. For instance, the Rakyat should not fight against each other. The NGOs should not fight against each other. Look at the politicians, they are compromising. Now, the third very, very important point you raised is about the power of the Prime Minister. The question is, we are so used to all this while, and I'll say all this while would probably up to, maybe Najib is the last of the lot, where Prime Minister has got immense powers. And after that, 2018 onwards, you find that the Prime Minister does not have immense powers. Now, there are pros and cons to it. Now, if we have a benevolent Prime Minister, people will say that, a benevolent dictator is good for the country. But I'm a person more for system and processes. I think we need to create systems and processes which is beyond personality, because it is personality politics, it's cult politics that have largely, I use the word, destroyed this country. So in that sense, yes, I agree totally that this will bring into discussion, another discussion probably, to what extent must the powers of the Prime Minister be curtailed?
Before the general election, if you talk to many supporters, especially the urban voters in Klang Valley, in Penang, and the west coast of Malaysia, many of them, they believe Pakatan Harapan would actually form a strong government. They felt that, well, we're going to meet, we will have at least, for sure, we will have the majority, the simple majority. We're very sure, based on the number of people they saw at the ceramah, and the conversations that they have with their fellow friends, okay? They seem to share the same opinion and share perception and sentiments that, look, the government must go, Barisan must go, we must have a new government. So it was a case of friends, neighbors sharing the same perception. We know, political analysts know that it was not possible for PH to get the magic number, because that Anwar Ibrahim, while he had been attending this mega ceramah, he could not penetrate the Malay heartland, the East Coast. So there were no mega ceramahs over there. But of course, Malaysians being Malaysians, we are quite blind to how the other races feel, how the people in other states, how they feel. We only see our own cocoon, okay? Now, but politicians actually, they were aware. They were aware that it's not going to happen. That was why that the DAP leaders like Anthony Loke made a statement that, look, the DAP was prepared to work with UMNO, because he knew that was not going to happen. That magic number 112 was not going to happen, and that the UMNO, they have seen the decline of the support for Barisan over the last 2 or 3 elections. So they knew the numbers were not there. So they were prepared to sort of like, okay, never mind what we said in the election campaign, okay? This was to get the soundbite, okay? And to get the voters so excited, but they knew it was not possible. Now, I want to ask this question, okay? Because we're going to talk about the Malay rural heartland. Did the Malay rural heartland, did they voted against the Barisan Nasional, in particular UMNO, for its corruption tainted image? Did they vote against Barisan Nasional because it was just like anyone else? Okay, it cannot be PH, because as far as the Malay heartland is concerned, no, it cannot be PH because there's PAP. Okay, no. So they would vote either Bersatu or PAS under Perikatan Nasional. So did they vote against corruption and against Barisan Nasional, or did they actually voted for PAS? Because the numbers that have been going around, the survey says, look, there's this green tsunami, there's this Islamic tsunami, you know. UMNO, this PAS has gone from 18 in G14 to 49 in G15. So did they actually vote for Islam or for PAS, or it was just like, it doesn't matter as long as they're Perikatan Nasional, so they voted for it? What's your view on this?
Okay, frankly, I haven't made up my mind yet. I'm reading various researchers, looking at various data and so on and so forth. One of the factors they mentioned is the influence of Undi 18. Now, if it is indeed Undi 18 that made a change to the so-called PAS tsunami, then that's a very frightening sign. So I will not be concerned, I will not be surprised if it's Undi 18 that gave all the votes. But I will not say it is because of consciousness in increase in Islam. I will not say that. But the other factor is, I don't know why they call it the green tsunami. You know, I've been telling my friends, stop calling it a green tsunami just because PAS goes green, because green tsunami is a positive indicator. You know, if I have a choice, I'll call it a red tsunami, because to me, the rise of PAS in this country, and I say this publicly, is a very dangerous sign for the country, because PAS, I'm not saying, I got a lot of PAS friends. I'm not saying PAS friends. I've got a lot of PAS friends. We have similar ideas and so on and so forth. I'm talking about PAS as a political party. PAS, to me, PAS as a political party is a representation of disunity in the country. Disunity among the Malaysians, disunity among the Malays itself. Because, in fact, I've always asked this question for the past 30 over years, how did this government, or the government at that time, allow a party to be registered in the name of a religion? Because the moment you register Parti Islam Se-Malaysia, does it mean I, Jahaberdeen Muhammad Yunoos, a Muslim, who does not join PAS, become un-Muslim, become a kafir, become a munafiq, become a fasikun, and so on and so forth? So the moment you establish such a party in a country where the majority are Muslims, it straight away divides it. That's number one. Number two is having a party which is aligned to Islam, for instance, also brings about another major big problem. Now, if you look at the constitution, for instance, in the constitution is very, very clear that Islam is the official religion of the country. It's very, very clear, number one. Number two, you know that the Muslims are the majority in this country. With these two points in the country, I would ask this question. Since Islam is the official religion of the country, shouldn't Islam or the Muslims be allowed as much leeway as possible, free from the politicians, to practice their faith? But the reverse is happening in Chunwai. Even though the constitution says, I'm very happy that Islam is the official religion, that means I know that I'm constitutionally protected to practice Islam as I say. Islam according to the genuine ulamas, Islam according to the genuine scholars, not according to the whims and fancies of the politicians. So that's another issue. So looking at the rise of the 49 parliamentary seats, I would like to think it's because the voters were confused between PN and PAS, because they wrote a ticket of Perikatan Nasional rather than PAS in many areas. That's number one. And number two is the fact that I think the Malays are still, when I say Malays, I'm talking about certain Malays in the Malay heartland, where there's still, it's a slow process, evolution of the Malays getting used to a multi-racial kind of politics. And I understand it very well, because I also grew up, among the Malays, in the Malay group. There was one time where it is unthinkable that any Malay would join DAP. Chunwai is completely unthinkable. It's like my Malay cousins, eating pork is like joining DAP. That's how serious it was. I'm not making it up, but that's how serious it was. But Alhamdulillah, I'm very happy to note that it's changing over the past many years. There are many Malays joining DAP, and Malays are able to accept DAP as well. And this is where I say that quite apart from politicians creating reforms in the country, nature and the citizens create reforms in the country. Look at it. We have today the unthinkable situation of UMNO and DAP sitting together in a government.
Yep.
To me, that's a remarkable positive development for racial unity in this country. Only because, I don't want to mention the name, only because for political reasons, a particular politician have been drumming into the heads of the Malays that voting DAP is disaster, DAP is anti-Islam, DAP is anti-Malay, and so on. I'm not saying this to support DAP. I'm looking at the political scenario and political environment. So going beyond politics, I think for right-thinking Malaysians, which includes Malay, Chinese, Indian, Sabah, and so on, they're very happy in this sense, beyond politics, that there is UMNO and there's DAP working together. After this, what else do you need for the fear to go away? You understand where I'm coming from, yeah?
Yeah.
So I think in
that coming back to the cabinet lineup, okay? So you made this point. We would have noticed that in this cabinet lineup, the minister in charge of religious affairs this time is a technocrat, an Islamic scholar. The previous minister under this administration of Ismail was Dato Idris Ahmad. He was a past leader. And of course, we remember that he made a lot of very controversial statements calling for the ban of Bon Udori and anything. So of course, at this time, Anwar make it a point not to include a politician, not even from Amanah, to be in the lineup. I'm given to understand, based on my sources, that this was something that the rulers also wanted. They wanted to take these the politics out of the religious politics out of the lineup, and they express their views that perhaps that it should not be a politician to head this religious ministry. Now, what is your take on this? To have a non-politician as a minister of religious affairs?
You're making very important observations today, Chunwai. I must say that. You know, like you currently observe that the royalty, the Majlis Raja Raja, for instance, if you look at the development of Majlis Raja Raja's reaction to politics and religion in this country, I would put it exactly as 14 years. They've been very proactive in wanting that there should be unity in this country, that Islam should not be politicized, and so on. So in that regard, I will applaud Dato' Sri Prime Minister in appointing Dato' Setia Dr. Naim. He's a professor, he's an academician. So you can imagine a person like him, and he was a Sharia court judge as well. So you can imagine for a person like him, an academician, a professor, he would have spent his last 30, 40 years thinking about issues, thinking about what is the spirit of the religion and so on, not politics.
Yeah.
In that sense, it's going to be a positive development. I believe Dr. Naim will be very approachable to all other religions because his approach will be religion, theology, rather than politics. So it's a good start. And also, that is a good message to the country also, that we have to separate religion and politics. And you know, if I may have to clarify myself, because this is a issue among the Malays. I am saying that Islam is all-consuming in the sense that every single aspect of my life as a Muslim should be covered by Islamic principles. I repeat, by Islamic principles. By that does not mean that I as a Muslim have a right to abuse Islam for my selfish interests. In other words, I as a Muslim cannot politicize Islam. I can make Islam as a I can make Islamic principles part of politics, not the other way around. I also cannot economize Islam. That's what there's a verse, quite very clearly. Allah says, look at them. They're selling my verses for a paltry price. These are all verses in the Quran. So the point being, there need to be a separation between politics and Islam. And I believe that is so. And I believe I'm also speaking from my understanding of the Quran. The entire idea of Islam is to guide you, not to abuse it. And you know, let's be fair. If you look at the political scenario all over the world, you go to Malaysia, all over the world, even in India, you find that situation happening. Even in medieval, the West, you find that happening. Christianity has been abused by politicians. Similarly, in Myanmar, you find that Buddhism has been abused by the politicians.
And in India as well? India
as well, I mentioned earlier. In India, Hinduism has been abused by politicians. So it is very, very important that the adherents of a religion be allowed that freedom and peace to be able to worship their God and to follow their religion without the interference and oppression by the politicians. So in short, I'm saying it's a very good start that we have a non-politician as a Menteri Agama, and I wish him the best.
Jabba, what has happened in Malaysia now, because the number of past MPs have gone up to 49, and now there's an extra past MP in police, and that they have control a number of states. So, of course, for non-Muslims, there's a lot of concern and fear as to their way of life, would it be affected? I just want to make a point that here. Now, we take a few steps back. What happened in Iran was that the Shah was disposed because he was corrupt and he was secular. He was corrupt, and he sort of like allowed the Ayatollahs to come in. So in the case of Malaysia, the Barisan Nasional considered to be nationalists, and that but they were deemed to be corrupt by the Malay heartland. I mean, they lost the Felda fixed votes. Barisan Nasional even lost in Putrajaya. Okay, I mean, this is the seat of government. They lost the support of the civil servant. Any Penang, for God's sake, this is Penang. Okay, and that Nurul Izzah lost in Permatang Park, which was unbelievable. So these are signs that whether it was purely for Bersatu or for PAS, but the fact was that they lost. PKR lost in Permatang Park, and in fact, that at some point we thought that even in Tambun, Anwar could have lost, and we know in Muar, Syed Siddiq was struggling, and in Bagan Ratu, I mean, he just won by just a few hundred votes. So we talk about this, that how important it is for nationalists or for secular, whatever label you call it, for these politicians to actually remain clean. Okay, remain clean and be seen to be competent. Now, so given the fact that now we have got this unity government comprising of tainted personalities who are still struggling with court cases, and then we have a batch of DAP all put up together. Okay, now, so to ensure that they actually remain in government, if you were the Prime Minister, okay, Anwar Ibrahim, okay, now you look at the results, you look at everything, it's really a hot seat. What would you think that he should do to ensure that his government survive? And not just that, that his Deputy Prime Minister, Anwar Zahid, who is facing a party election in January, what do they think that they should do to cleanse the party and to show that, look, we are the best examples of what a Malaysian government should be like? What should be their focus?
Okay, this is going to be a very difficult question, because that question should be directed to actually Anwar Ibrahim's political strategies. Unless he engages me in his political strategies, then I'll give him all the advice I can.
I will give my 2 cents later.
Yes. But having said that, of course, politically, pragmatically, you will need to ensure that his government is strong. Yeah. And obvious things, of course, to make sure that Zahid wins the elections and he comes back strong. The entire idea being to maintain the current coalition government, not unity government. Unity government is the wrong term. The current coalition government is to maintain it. That's understandable. That's for the short term. Now, assuming that he manages to do that in the sense that, number one, he makes Zahid win. Number two, he makes Barisan Nasional stronger. Number three, he takes care of other coalitions, and therefore, by June or July, this government still remains strong. And that's a short term. I'm always I think you know me. I'm always into the long term, the non-sexy approach. Now, after he finishes 6 months of stability, assuming that he got the current coalition government stable, he should seriously go on a long-term approach, which this country sorely needs. And then there's another area close to my heart that is speaking about it for 20, 30 years, that the 49 seats that PAS won today, or the creeping radicalism in this country, the creeping ritualization of religion that's going on in this country, all these are not something that happened yesterday.
Yes, correct.
The past 30, 40 years. So what would I like the Prime Minister to do? What I would like the Prime Minister to do is to get the Education Minister to sit down with him and say, look, we need to go on a national unity and rationalization program. I repeat, national unity and rationalization program. So you have to look at the sekolah menengah, all these sekolah kebangsaan. Look at them. They may be called sekolah kebangsaan, but are they behaving like sekolah kebangsaan? Maybe you should change the name to sekolah nasional. Makes more sense, more focused. This bangsa thing is very confusing sometimes. So that's number two. Also, I think we have to seriously look at a long-term solution, a long-term approach to vernacular schools. I mean, I'm not against them, but I don't think it is good in the national unity. My son went to Chinese school for primary school, but go to look at the whole thing. And thirdly, we must not forget the religious schools. Don't be afraid to touch the religious school because of Islam. It is because of Islam that you must be courageous to touch the religious schools. You must ensure that the religious schools do not teach something contrary to Islam. So all these things, why? Because if we don't do this, this will lead to two major factors. First one is education. Our education standards will be corrupted, will go down the drain, we will not be able to live in this century. Number two, which I'm more concerned, and I want to say this on this television, I've been concerned for years about security. Security. I'm very concerned that these religious differences between the Malays will cause a civil war in Malaysia, in beautiful Malaysia. I don't want this to happen. And why am I saying this, Chunwai? Because I've been researching into terrorism, radicalism, extremism for the past 20 years. My PhD thesis is on radicalism and terrorism. I noticed the trends in other countries. All the other countries are coming to Malaysia. And that's frightening. Malaysia cannot be exempted from the trends that human beings go through. It's a major issue. So maybe I will add in, other than the Prime Minister, the Education Minister, the Religious Minister, and MKN. MKN must come in. No, the Majlis Keselamatan Negara, because this is a real important long-term issue. So that's my answer to you. Short-term is stabilize the current government, but please go long-term. Otherwise, Chunwai, I get PRU 16. You will not get 49 seats. You get 70, 80 seats. Trust me.
Correct. True. In a very strange way, that there's been a lot of criticism of Zahid in the cabinet lineup, as we know, because he was supposed to be the reason why people voted for the PH government. And then now, instead of a vote for Barisan Nasional, is a vote for Zahid, is a vote for Barisan Nasional, is a vote for Zahid. Has actually become a vote for a PH. It's not is a vote for Zahid. Okay, or the way around. Okay, so but suddenly everybody realized that well, he's actually quite an important component. Because without the 30, the whole government collapsed. So that comes to the point we were talking about earlier. If in the party election that he loses, okay, that would be another problem, which we do not know how it will lead to, because we could be presumptuous, okay? So we do not really know, okay, how the turnout will be. But I want to come back a bit to the education part that you were talking about earlier. We know the importance of Islam, and that is the official religion, and of course it is a dominant force now. Let's not kid ourselves. It is okay now. What about this importance of shared values? How do you? I mean, like I always believe that Malaysia needs to give a bigger emphasis to shared values, especially in schools. Kids must not go to school and be given the impression, or parents get the impression that look, sekolah kebangsaan has now become sekolah agama. That a lot of restrictions where the guru agama is more powerful than the headmaster or the headmistress. He or she calls the shot, okay? Or no cheerleading, that's it. So the headmaster will back out, okay? Now, would you think that it will help if the government, the education ministry, encourages lessons on shared values? Because that, and it's also good for non-Muslims to understand Islam, okay? You and I went through, I was forced, I had to go through the Islamic studies in UKM, okay? And that the years I was there, I thought that it was really beneficial. So there were politicians who were saying, oh, how can non-Muslims be forced to study Islam in UKM? I felt that was perfectly normal. I enjoy it. And I think you know that many of the non-Muslims perform better in their scores than Muslims in the ZA classes, okay, right? So shared values, because all religion have got common features, commonalities of values. Do you think that it would be good for such things to be taught in schools?
You see, why are we having this conversation about shared values? I like the term shared values, and I understand also where you're coming from when you start speaking about values from other religions. But the question I think that academicians, thinkers in this country should ask is, why are we even discussing about values from all religions? That discussion, to me, in a sense, should not even arise. But it arose. It arose because of the extreme, inverted commas, pretended Islamization in this country. I mean, I, as a Muslim, Chunwai, I would love to have Islamic values. I would love to have. But I do not say, and I go on in public to say, that everything that is called Islamization is Islamic in my understanding. So the reason why we're coming to these shared values for other religions is this. It is human nature that the moment, say, for example, a Christian keeps talking about Christianity, it is human nature that the Muslim and the Hindu will start talking about their religion as well. It is human nature. That's why I said earlier, if you have a Muslim-based party, sooner or later you will have a Christian-based party, Hindu-based party, and so on and so forth. We don't want that.
Yep.
So coming back to your question about shared values, that is very dear to my heart. And I want to make a wish list to current Prime Minister, Dr. Anwar Ibrahim. I think the first agenda on his list as a Prime Minister should be to chart out and design, surprisingly, Chunwai, after so many years we don't have this, a Malaysian dream. We need to have something called the National Malaysian Dream. And what is a Malaysian dream? A Malaysian dream must have a Malaysian objective. You want to pray, you want to go to your Christ or Shiva, Brahma, Vishnu, Allah. That's yours. We respect it. But let's have a common Malaysian dream, which is not repugnant to your faith and my faith.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll all agree that human dignity is a Malaysian dream.
Yeah.
So
but I mentioned about this. I mentioned about this shared values thing because it came to my mind that in Singapore, they tried to implement. I don't know whether they are still doing it, but in schools they were encouraging their students to visit places of worship of other religion. I'm sure if we do a survey, we ask many of my Chinese friends. I said, "Have you ever been to a mosque?" Most of them will say, "Maybe national mosque, okay." But they were not sure. What should they do? They go to a mosque. They were not sure. Okay, so a lot of Christians, even Christians, will say, "Oh, I want to go to a temple. My faith will be affected." You have this problem. But when they go to overseas, they have no problem going to the Vatican. They're no problem going to Borobudur. But in Malaysia, there's this fear. Why do we have this fear?
This fear is only recent. This fear is only recent for the past 30 years. I'm from Penang, you're from Penang,
Yeah.
I mean, we have no issues going to mosques, temples, churches, etc. I'm from a mixed marriage. When my son was 6 years old, I took him to a Hindu temple, I took him to a Guru Warda, I took him to a Buddhist temple, I took him to a church, I took him to all when he was 6 years old. So I wanted him to be exposed to all these things, to tell him. But anyway, now I totally agree with the shared values. What I'm saying is, it should be within something called the Malaysian dream.
Yeah.
Because as long as we keep emphasizing the differences, we're going to have a problem. You want to bring the Malaysia forward, you need to have a national policy called the Malaysian dream. And how do we achieve the Malaysian dream? In that could be like what you just said, Chunwai, the Ministry of Unity, for instance, which has been sleeping all these years. More active role, have these shared value things. Probably have twice a month on television, have programs, this kind of thing, so that you're no longer frightened and so on and so forth. But I would say it must be under something called a Malaysian dream. It must be. We need to give a Malaysian dream. With that Malaysian dream, then people get confident. And if confidence is everything, Chunwai. If you're confident, I
think that the unity ministry, I hope that it will have a higher profile. Because we do not want it to be another sleeping ministry. Exactly. The previous one, with due respect, there was not much publicity. We did not quite know what the minister was doing. And this one, we again not too sure what he would do. And I hope that there will be some bigger play-up, bigger activity, bigger engagement with stakeholders, with like-minded people who believe in the Malaysian dream, okay, as you said. And I think that he should bring these people together.
Totally agree. I agree with you.
Now, back to cabinet list, because we're talking about cabinet list, Jabba. That of course it's good that Malaysians are making a lot of scrutiny, a lot of critical views. It seems that there's a lot of target against Tunku Zafrul because he lost in Kuala Selangor, he has been made a senator, and now he's back in cabinet. Why is he being made the target when there are other ministers who also lost in election? Saifuddin Nasution lost in Bandar Baru Kulim, and Zamri Kadir lost in Lumut. They did not seem to get the criticism which Tunku Zafrul seems to get. Why?
Now, the fact that there's criticism, again, as you correctly pointed out earlier, shows political maturity. This is not the first time in Malaysian political history where a leader who has lost the election has been made a senator to come back. This is not the first time.
Yeah, it's been happened previously.
Before. All right.
Yeah.
So right now, but those days you don't hear the criticism. Today you hear it, and I think the criticism, the fact that criticizing is good. I mean, as you correctly pointed out, other than Tunku Zafrul, there's also Zamri and the other person is
Saifuddin Nasution.
Right. Now, in an ideal political situation, of course, in a mature democracy, you would like to have those who lost elections must have the high integrity, the high moral ground, and the high ethics not to accept any position. in the market. But it's okay. That culture has not come to Malaysia yet. So I do not know why Tengku Zaro was appointed. There could be many reasons. It could be because of the skill set he may have. It could be because of a political negotiation, so on and so forth. But I would say this, Chunwai, the fact that criticism is good. People are evaluating. I hope that this evaluation will lead to a political maturity where in the future, we have politicians with higher ethical values, higher integrity, higher moral ground to accept the verdict of the rakyat. You know, I'm not specifically talking about Tunku Zafar, I'm talking generally as a principle of politicians. Yeah, they should have.
This Prime Minister, he says that he will not take any salary, either as a Prime Minister, and he says there will be no salary for him from the Finance Ministry. And we know that this present cabinet, they have all taken a pay cut. Now, it may be good symbolically, okay, but I'm also a bit worried, okay, because I think that if you're doing a good job, decent job, especially as in a very demanding portfolio as a minister, I think that people should be paid, okay, reasonably paid, well paid. Now, when people says that they are not going to get a salary, of course, being cynical Malaysians, then they will say that now where are they going to get their money from, okay? Would they be clean? In Singapore and in Hong Kong, the CEOs, the ministers are very well paid and they really do a great job and it's clean. So if they take a pay cut, what will we do? I know that one of the reasons why Gobind Singh Deo decided to decline a minister's post was because he really felt that he'll be under a lot of financial constraint. He has got 4 kids who be going to colleges, and that he's better paid as a lawyer. Okay, I know that when he was previously in the under the PH government previously, he suffered financial losses tremendously. There was one reason why he said no. Do you think that it helps when people say, "Hello, you know, I don't have a pay, you know, I'll take a pay cut"? Would it help them concentrate on their jobs?
You know, Chunwai, when I was a teenager, my ambition was to become a politician. Because I was very much moved by Gandhi. Very much moved by Gandhi. So I want to be a politician. And I thought that if I become a politician, I will actually die poor. That was my idea of being a politician. If I be a politician, I will die poor, I have no time for my family, and so on and so forth. Then when I was in UCAM, I was very active in campus politics, etc. So I was one of the targeted to go into politics nationally. But when I reached 30 years old, I decided not to enter politics because I realized, and I was very surprised, how is it that other than Tunku Abdul Rahman, and as I grow older, I realized, as you pointed out, I realized how is it possible in this country, politicians, while they're very busy, supposed to be, or other ministers very busy administering, how in the world did they end up becoming very, very rich? How did the children end up becoming very? I'm honestly, I was boggled and surprised. How can they, if they are busy serving the country, end up becoming very rich? And how fortunate are they that all their children are directors of 100 companies?
Yeah, and their lifestyles.
Sorry,
and their lifestyles.
You know, so I do not feel sorry at all about their salary being cut and so on and so forth. In fact, Chunwai, this country has never yet set up a committee to examine, number one, what is the efficiency level of ministers? Okay, what actually do they do? Chunwai, you know, whatever people may say about Mahathir Mohamad, when he was the Prime Minister, Dato' Sri Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, I met him several times in his office as Prime Minister as a young man. One thing I'm always impressed about him is whatever book I give him, I come back and see him 1 month later, he would have flagged those books. He finds time to read. That much I give the man. And Dr. Mahathir, when he talks to you, he looks straight into your eyes.
Yes.
And he actually listens. Not like most politicians, you say 2 words, you have 10 words to say. I'm talking about the current politicians in the past 10, 15, 20 years. I mean, some of our friends hearing this may be upset, but you know, I'm telling the truth.
Yeah.
So the point I'm making is we need to have a committee. I mean, symbolically, what Anwar did, I support. Very good. A message sent across. But we need to have a committee, a select committee, or whatever committee to examine what is the role of the minister. What do they do? What kind of work, you know, etc. And then we come out the salary scale. It's all been done. And you know, ministers, most ministers I know, I ask them, where do you find the time to read? Every day you're meeting supporters. When do you have time? It is your KSU and your officers who are doing all the work for you. You know, where is your policy? In short, Chunwai, I'm sorry to say this, I don't think charlatans should be paid highly. I'm not saying all of them are charlatans. I'm not saying that. I have a lot of good friends, both sides, But I think Dato' Sri Anwar Ibrahim, as a Prime Minister, did the right move, cutting the salaries. But more important, moving forward, let's have a committee. A proper committee analyze the salary scale, efficiency, role of ministers.
And Jabba, that as you said that some of them do not look into your eyes. Some of them, when you shake their hands, they are not. It's not even a full grip. It's just like using their fingers to touch you.
They're rude.
And they're not even looking at you.
Chunwai, I'll go on record to say I've never kissed the hand of any minister, including Dato Sri Dr. Mahathir Mohamad when he was a prime minister, and he's okay with that. I don't. I only kiss the hands as a Muslim, as a Malay. I only kiss the hands of my father, my late father, my late mother, my grandmother. I even kiss on the cheeks.
I think this politic bodak has got to go to. When a minister goes to a particular place or he comes to your office, why should the entire office be asked to greet him at the lobby? I think it doesn't make sense. They should be at work. If he comes in, that's his job. He doesn't need 10% to welcome him. I think that has got to go. And I think that also for functions, can we do away with these 15-minute salutations? Yang berhormat Tan Sri, Dato Sri, Puan Sri. Oh my God, can we just say Tuan-Tuan yang dihadirin? That's it, right? This 15-minute salutation is absolute rubbish. One more thing, Jabba, I really need your endorsement for this, okay? In the past, it was only the Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister who had the police outriders. I think over the years, suddenly I find that a lot of senior government officials and even the other ministers, they seem to have the police outriders and the convoys. I wonder, how did that came about?
I would say this, just a slight difference. Number one, I agree, Prime Minister should have outrider. Number two, I think the Defense Minister should have as well, because these are sensitive issues. Maybe even the KDN Minister. Other than these three ministries, the rest don't need outriders, please.
Yes.
Don't need whatever for.
Yeah.
Tomorrow you change another ministry anyway.
Yeah.
You're out of power anyway, so it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Final question. Final question for you before you wrap. Every time there's a new minister, there seems to, especially for education, somebody will try to do something that's different. And in the case of the youth and sports, I think every time there's a new administration, there's always a new minister. So things keeps on changing. As we all know that, as they say that if it's something that's not that needs to be fixed, don't fix it, right? Exactly. So what is your view to people who try to change things, wear black shoes, wear colored shoes? What is your view to these ministers?
I totally agree with the adage, do not fix it if it's not broken. Put your ego in the toilet and flush it. As a leader, you need continuity, kesinambungan policy. So the priority should be benefit to rakyat. So if the policy works, tweak it, but don't change it. I'll say that, yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us. I really enjoyed this conversation. We hope to do this again. And thank you so much to all Malaysians who are watching this. Please continue to support this program, subscribe, and do follow us. Thank you so much. Good night. Jabba, thanks.
Good night. Thank you.